What's up, y'all? It's your boy Gerald. It is 28th of December, and I just concluded my day. And I know it was on here earlier, but I got something burning that I want to ask the women, especially the women on this channel or someone who, if you find this video, I want you to take it in, but I want you to consider this too. Let's first start off with a story. Well, we're gonna do a snapshot of Gerald's life. See, when I was young, when I was a little boy, I was very, very fair skinned. I get that from my mom's side of the family. And when you're a kid, scrappy young boy, eyes like diamond, looking at the world, just taking it all in because you're young. And at a very, very young age, I saw the realities of life. Yes, uh, racism was there. Yes, biases were there. I got that. And the one thing that I always saw, it never failed. And this may be somebody right here on this channel. This might be you right now. You may be thinking, you ever wondered what my nationality was? Did it cross your mind by chance? Because for those that are Generation Xers, you didn't start understanding about the diversities of culture. Some of you did because it was instilled in you to learn. Then there were some you learned by default. Maybe some it was all about a type, and you started to look at the contrast of what you weren't compared to what they were. And you started to notice that you always wanted what you didn't have, which is human nature. But what is so amazing, that was always a common theme in my growth through my childhood, through my adolescence, to my early adulthood, and even still to in my adulthood. I still get it. I get it. It never fails. There's always someone that walks up to me and then they have the courage to ask, what are you? And at first, when I was, I didn't understand that because I'm like, I'm just like you. And then I would actually have people retort back like, nah, no, you're not. Have people say, well, you must be biracial because that would make sense because of your hair. Your hair is curly. Your hair lays. It's not kinky because we have this bias that we think that because if your hair is not blessed to have that curl, which is basically genetically in your DNA on how the hair follicle is developed, which is the more curlier it is, the more elasticity you got. Then I started to think about it because of a movie I saw several years ago. Some of y'all know it. The movie that Chris Rock did Good Hair. I watched a little bit of it, and then I turned it off. But some of the points made sense because that was the first time for most men to have a snapshot or somewhat of an understanding why the fairer sex was all about their hair, why there was so much money being funneled in to the regiment of their hair follicle. But you know what, y'all? I'm a firm believer God makes a way when there is no way. And I just had an epiphany not too long ago. You might want to consider this too. But before I put that thought out there, let me just say this. So I decided to go on social media. Y'all know YouTube. I'm up in there and I'm just putting little subjects in YouTube. And a video happened, come across talking about indigenous people. Well, I would be rude to not complete my first thought. Because I know a lot of people may have considered, well, he looks mixed. Look at his skin. He's got to be biracial. Actually, I'm not. When asked what my nationality was, I always responded as I'm black. But there was one thing that I would omit because I didn't understand it, because I was never educated. And there's a reason why I'm putting this out, because I'm gonna put this out. I'm gonna put this out there into the ethers so that you can take this back with you. One of the things that I omitted, and I think a lot of it had to do with fear, as well as not knowing your cultural roots. It's the fact that my family tree is Blackfoot Indian. And the funny thing about it, I've echoed this on some of my videos. I remember when I was a little boy, 5, 6 years old, and I would spend time with my great grandmother. And I remember her hair was down her back, down to her butt. I remember that. And it was long and it was silver. And I found myself very intrigued as a little boy. I used to grab the little brush, as most kids do, and I would try to brush her long silver hair. And I remember she would, whenever I was able to spend time with her, she would say little things. And the one thing that I remembered that she told me, I remember, I'm only assuming I was running around in the apartment, my grandmother's apartment. So I'm referring to my grandmother's mother, running around because my grandmother she used to like James Brown. And I want to say, I say this loosely, maybe she was playing the song I'm Black and I'm Proud. And I was corrected and I said I was a Black American in some type of regard. And I remember my great grandmother corrected me and she said, "No, there are only 5 shades of brown." I didn't understand. I'm a toddler, but I never forgot what she told me. And in my in my 40s, how evident that those jewels of wisdom that she was trying to bestow are ever so true. Which goes back to what I always keep telling y'all. Everything comes full circle, y'all. Everything, even your history. Whatever's done in the dark comes to the light. Because if it's hidden, it can't be hidden forever. So fast forward, I'm on social media, I'm on YouTube, and I I'm looking and I'm intrigued and not even taking into consideration the countless times I've had people come up to me and say, "Are you Puerto Rican? Talk Spanish?" Because back then, when I was in my early 20s, I used to have my hair really wavy. Wasn't trying to do that the barbs thing, but I kept my hair groomed. And I guess you know, a lot of women were drawn to fair-skinned guys. I even had people come up to me and say, "You Creole? You mulatto?" Akroom, you know, all that stuff went over my head. Like, I couldn't relate, and that for a long time, I had very, very low self-esteem. And one of the reasons why I had low self-esteem is because I didn't know my history. How can a child feel proud of where they're from if they don't have a sense of belonging? How can I put roots down when you have no means to gravitate to say that's home? Well, that applies to everybody in the United States, right? Because the United States is the basket of the immigrant. But there's one problem with that. And you hear a lot of you hear a lot of talk about it because you can't claim something that was already claimed. So that goes to that term indigenous or natural. Maybe that's the reason why they got rid of those um, the original pennies that had the Indian on the front of it, and those 5 cent nickels had the Indian head on them. Was they trying to tell us something? Think about it. But here's the reason why I'm putting this out. A couple weeks ago, it's been about a month. I got a colleague that I work with, and he is from uh, the Ivory Coast. He is from the Ivory Coast, and I've always had a thirst of knowledge for anybody that truly has come from the African continent. I want to know you're from there. You were reared there. Drop jewels on me. Let me, you know, I want to understand your perception as what your viewpoints are, right? Well, he validated two things for me. One was already pre-existing because in 2000, no, 1999, I'm sorry. 1999? 1998. 1998. I had the pleasure of going to Uganda. And I was in Uganda for a couple months to do humanitarian support, humanitarian relief, because you had a lot of there was a civil war going on, and there were people at that time, and there's still remnants going on to this day of people that were trying to leave the Congo, and they were getting slaughtered. The rebels were killing them. So they sent the military out there, and we're there to send aid and support however we could. But while I was there, y'all, I went to Uganda. I was in Entebbe. I know what Lake Victoria looks like, the part that I could see. And I took in that whole experience of being on that continent, looking at the stars and, waking up in dusk and watching the sky filled with thousands and thousands of fruit bats going out towards the river. Oh, I'm sorry, Lake Victoria, to only come back at sundown like a scene out of Batman. And you're like, well, what is that? Are those are those vultures? Because their wingspan are huge. No, those are bats. Blew my mind. Blew my mind. And I treasured that moment of being on that African soil and being able to take a snapshot of being there in my mind forever. But while I was there, we had a driver to take us to where we were working out of and everything. And I tried to take that moment to uh, build a rapport with this guy. And I wanted to know his opinions on how he felt about the United States. And I wanted to learn, I wanted to understand. And I will never forget this. He told me that the truth of the matter is one of the most disrespectful things you can do to a person that is from Africa, one of the most disrespectful thing you can call a person from Africa is to call them an African American. And I was blown away. I'm like, whoa, why would you say that? Because traditional Africans look at Black Americans as less than. Maybe that's why when you talk to someone that is from over there, they have a certain air about how they communicate back to you, because a lot of it is propaganda of what the media puts out and what we willfully put out there ourselves by our own doing. But how ironic, what we put out there is being gobbled up and packaged and finding its way over to that continent today. You can't say Western influence don't have a effect because it does. What Africa is one of the most highest consumers when it comes to skin bleaching products on the planet. Why? Because it's propaganda of what they see us do. Now, I never forgot that because I was like, what do you mean? That, we're African Americans. And he looked at me with this disdain, and he said, how can you call yourself an African American when you don't know your roots? Can you name one person that you're connected to? You're not an African. And I never forgot that. So fast forward 25 years. And I'm talking to my colleague in our break room. And I'm trying to get, I'm doing the same thing. I'm talking about, I'm getting to know him and stuff. And, I'm just trying to vibe off of him and get a understanding of how he sees the world, right? And we got to talking because, he revealed to me that he was Muslim. He was an active practitioner of the Islamic faith. It's okay. And I know that there are certain times of the day that they go into prayer. So that was good for me to know because, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to disturb him. I'm going to let him do his thing. Every man has a right to give praise. So fast forward, we get to talking, and I'll never forget this. I asked him, I asked about his history and how Western history, what's the difference? And he told me when he was being educated through formal school, that he didn't learn about European history until after he went to college in a Western college. He came here on he had family here, and he came from there to New York, and he went to community college. He said that's when I started learning about Western history. He said, but they don't teach that in school, in formal school. They talk and teach about our history, African history. And that really intrigued me because I wanted to learn. I wanted to know. And he turned me on to some books. So I had to ask this. I said, well, when did you learn about slavery? And he looked at me with this peculiar look in his eyes. And I'll never forget it. You know what, y'all? He said he didn't learn about slavery until he came to the States and was learning it in community college. Because that was the only time he knew about it. And I was like, how is it that you didn't know about that growing up? He said, because they don't talk about that here. Nobody talks about slavery in Africa. He looked at me as if like I was trying to sell him a pack of wolf tickets. And he was like, no, they don't teach that in school. What is that? And so it wasn't until I came to the States, then I started to know about slavery. Never forgot that. I'm like, how is it this person's from the Ivory Coast and he don't know? So that put a big question mark in the back of my mind. But this isn't the first time I've heard this. And I was like, whoa. So I just stuck that away. And, you know, so I got home tonight and I was really just looking at more videos, but I happened to catch a video that was a couple speeches that were done by Minister Louis Farrakhan. And he was he made a point that made me really, really scratch my head. If the United States, which were already inhabited by Native Americans, they were already there. So you can't discover something that was already claimed. But we already know the story, how the story goes on that one, right? And all it was doing was validating a lot of things that I had questioned in my development. Here's my point. Do you realize how many people that walk around in the United States that are of melanated complexion also have Native American lineage? But see, that is something that is not pushed because you, especially for the minority, the black community, there's always been a stigma about you ain't got time to claim that. You need to worry about being black. Figure that part out, and then we'll go that route and try to connect the dots. But here's the thing, y'all. I've always been leery about these DNA tests going on. There's countless ones out there, right? But the one thing that I always saw when you go on YouTube, you see plenty of them up there that people are reading the results on, and they're reading results and they're filming it and chronicalizing whatever it is, right? You don't never hear nobody come out and say you are this percentage indigenous or Native American. Why is that? It's always of European descent, Scottish descent, um, uh, Asiatic, and then they skip. Of course they're gonna skip Russian, and then they'll jump all the way over to Africa, and they'll say from Senegal or from Sierra Leone. Man, there's a lot of people from Sierra Leone these days, ain't it? But you don't never hear nobody say, well, from Chad or from Liberia or all the other countries that make up that continent. You don't never hear that. You never question that. You don't question that. How coincidental that always plays out. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not shade. This is just question. Why is that the case? We have the best technology on the planet, especially when it comes to DNA. Shoot, look at Maury Povich. He's been using that DNA for what, almost 20 years? No, but think about it. And paternity court, DNA. But the truth of the matter is, all that stuff is going to go in a server somewhere with the rest of your information that you put out online freely. So that if you decide to nut up, do something stupid, or if by chance there's somebody that is looking for you, all they gotta do is hit the button and look for a match. Same thing they're doing with your fingerprints. Now they got your DNA. And now you add the stuff that you put out there on social media or the internet, because once you put it out there on the internet, guess what? It's free for anybody to have. They just got to know how to get it. You ever thought about that? And pretty soon they'll be doing retina scans, and they'll have everything about you and recorded. So I joke about it, but I really think that's the whole reason why we have so many people pushing the agenda. Go ahead and know your history. Yeah, because they want to know you. They want to know you. They want to know everything about you. They want to know who you're related to, who you're connected to. And yes, there's some pluses when it comes to medical history. You know what I'm saying? But everything has a double-edged sword too. Now, so let me bring this back home. So as I was watching the video, right, epiphany jumped in my spirit. This is for you, queens. Maybe this is something you might want to consider. Let's just say the whole reason, the push for you to embrace, getting those extensions, getting those weaves, getting those wigs. Maybe that was so that you would have such a low image of yourself that you would not be inspired to grow your hair, because your hair biblically is your crown. And for those who may have been doing research, especially if you are of melanated descent, you're going to love this if you don't know this. Next time you pull up an image in your local social media or search engine of choice, pull up indigenous or Native American and just look down the page, or put early photos of Native American or Native American Indians, right? Because the word native is what? Indigenous. You're from there. That's what it means. But what you'll also notice is when you look at some of those real old pictures, why they look like, because they're melanated. Oh, that was one of the reasons why you had the Dole Scroll. Because most people that are of Native American descent and they can prove their lineage, you can also have dual citizenship because of the Sovereignty Treaty, which gives you federal benefits. Oh, didn't know that, did you? I mean, you can go to college for free. You get certain loans and grants because of your lineage. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And while you have some people, Queen, King, I want you to listen to this. You ever thought about this? You ever remember for those who have those strong cheekbones and your wide nose, uh-huh, and the bridge of your eyebrows and your forehead or your hair texture, that's nothing but that Native American. That's your ancestor. You ever thought about that? Hmm? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description box, and at your leisure, I want you to click on it and watch it. That's all I'm saying. But I thought about it. I said, well, if if most women were able to understand their heritage and go back down the family tree, because you do understand, y'all, your great 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 grandparents back then, they did not separate blacks from African or Negro from Native America. They put down Negro because of the melanin. Hmm. And depending on where your lineage is from, will give you a strong viewpoint of the tribes that had dominion in that region. The Blackfoot had the Blackfoot and the Apache had a strong dominion on the East Coast. And then you had the Sioux, they had the Midwest, the Crow, the Iroquois, Midwest, Southern, Southeastern, Southwestern, the Iroquois, North, I think Northwest, Northeast, no, Northwestern, Central, and all through Canada. But here's the thing: this is something that a lot of people are not connecting the dots. Scientists are starting to admit that not only the planet is far older than they projected. Well, if they turn around and say, well, the first man was found origin of Africa. Remember what I told you what my great grandma said? There are 5 shades of brown. At one time, the Bering Straits, you could migrate straight across from one continent to the next by way of Canada. So does it surprise you when you look at the, the native Eskimos, look, the ones that live off the land? What do they look like? They look like they look like Native Americans, Native Indians. But here's the kicker, y'all. You ready for this? I'm gonna bring it back to the main topic. The same traits and descriptions are also the same as the Siberian Mongoloid tribe because they live in teepees, but they live on the snow. They live in like ice, but they still got the same traits as the Eskimos. They do things the same way. Only different is they look more Mongoloid or more Asian look. So guess what? If that ain't a definition of Asiatic, they were from that region. So, but I'm a firm believer of this too, y'all. I believe There were people that left Africa by choice, by exploration, and as well as for exile purposes. And somebody had to plot the earth. But here's another thing too, and I'm gonna shut my mouth. When you look at the southern hemisphere, if you take the social aspect of it, you look at South America, why is it you see Afro Brazilians or Afro? You add the country, put Afro in front of it. They're indigenous. They all have strong black features. No matter where you go, you see it. Matter of fact, if you saw the opening ceremony of the Olympics, you would have noticed that too. Out of those 85 countries, no, 214 countries, 85 of them had melanated people. Is that coincidental or what? Don't think so. How did the people in uh, New Zealand look like the people of Samoa, Fiji, and Tonga? Why they all look the same, but different spheres of the continent? How's that possible? I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But to get back to my main point, Queens, think about it. Maybe the propaganda was to convince you to break down your whole the way you saw yourself, to convince you to not see your value in your hair, and that's why you gravitate to those to the European look, because that is a image of success, but of acceptance. You ever thought about that? I do one better. I do one better. I do one better. And I'm gonna bring this. I'm gonna shut up. You know how y'all like spending your money on that? You like going to the Dominican head shops, Dominicans, the Haitians. Yeah, you see our lineage there too, right? Mm-hmm. Um, but a true precision look like your cousin. But what makes their hair strong, makes it long and fall, is because of the equator and the heat. Here's something I want you to put. Uh, there's a culture called uh, Melanesian. The Melanesian people. Put melanin then add Asia to it. Melanesian people. Look that up. They look just like you. Look just like me. But they got blonde hair. But they may have taught you, no, you got European in your family. No, the strongest gene you got is our gene. Maybe that's the reason why they yell since day one, black is beautiful, because everything comes from. Everything comes from there. And the further you come from the darkness, the lighter it gets. Don't believe me? I'll do one better. How do you explain albinos? How do you explain that? Explain that one. If they didn't tell you their cultural influence, you wouldn't be able to identify, is that person black? Is that person white? Because they both have that They have that pigment. But guess what? Albinos are they're blessed because the most influential person that was of that uh, of that skin complexion was Noah. Look it up in the Bible. His parents thought that he was of the angels because of his complexion. No, Noah was an albino. Something to consider, right, y'all. Just think about it. If you only knew how beautiful your hair really is, you would never put nothing over. And this is no shade. I'm just telling you what's within you is better. But I hope you guys take a second, look at the description box. I put a link in there. Peep that out and tell me what you think about that. I know a lot of y'all gonna be scratching your head like, well, because you probably felt the same way. Who are you? And that's another thing too. My millennials, before you can claim your history, you gotta claim yourself first. That means you gotta love yourself unconditionally. And if you do that, guess what? You'll be able to appreciate your history. You'll be able to see your direction, and that direction will reveal what you know is your purpose. Don't be afraid to love you. Be proud of you. Be blessed, y'all.